Yeah.
Did you just give me the sheet?
Oh, I did, yeah.
Oh, you did.
I did. Sorry. Trying to capture the big points.
Did you want to start?
Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Heidi Rosales. I'm, for now, I'm the interim chief prosecutor for the city of Cincinnati. Can I ask where each team?
Not little blue ballots in the back.
Oh, we can't.
We have to confirm that they're like filled out correctly, and then like.
Okay, should we go ahead with comments then, or should we wait?
You
Yeah,
can.
you can go on the comments.
Yeah, we are going to be receiving your yellow and white sheets,
Okay.
so feel free to tell us. My lab.
So I did keep my sheets just for comments. One thing I would like to commend everybody on, everybody has a wonderful command of the rules of evidence, and you all handled objections awesomely. I would say it rivals attorneys that have been practicing for many, many years that I see every day. So all of you should be commended for that.
You took the judge.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you should be proud of yourself.
Right. So that's really good. I guess I'll just start with the order of the way things went. Mr. Morris, you have really good court presence, good eye contact, move about the well. So your presence and everything, really good. The one thing that I wanted to have more from the plaintiff side throughout the entire case, but it did start with the opening statement, is how you're going to connect the dots. This is obviously a circumstantial case for you guys. And circumstantial cases and direct evidence cases, at least in the state of Ohio, I don't know about the state of Midlands, but legally, the evidence carries the same weight. So just because you have a circumstantial case doesn't mean it's not compelling. So what I wanted to hear more of were what were the circumstances that are going to make my case? Why is this compelling? Why should I believe that this person committed election fraud, despite the fact that there is no direct evidence? So I wanted to have the dots established. I wanted to have them established early. And one thing that I think that the plaintiff's side could have benefited from for the entire case is establishing a time frame of the sequence of the actions. And I think that would have gone a long way for showing the compelling nature of the circumstantial evidence. Now, towards the end of the case, you guys started to connect the dots. And I kept thinking, oh, great, you know, this is where I'm starting to hear it. But it wasn't connected all the way for me. One thing that you guys never brought out, that's kind of an obvious question for me, is what does Casey French have to gain from committing election fraud? So anyway, but for the plaintiff side, maybe just establishing more of how the facts create the circumstance that you want us to believe in this case. Mr. Sample, you appeared nervous at first, but as the trial proceeded, I thought you got much more comfortable. And again, I think you also have a good court presence. Everybody has good eye contact, and I think that's wonderful. I think it was really good in your opening statement that you hit who has the burden of proof and what the elements are. So as you know, when plaintiffs set up what their case should be, I think it's always good for defense to say, this is what they have to prove, and this is how they're not going to be able to do it. And that was established early on, so I thought that was good. Ms. Jackson, you were my favorite witness. You did a great job. You played the part perfectly well, and you came across as believable, and that you were the true victim of this. So, you did a really good job. So now I'm going to go down to Ms. Tesler. Who was Ms. Ziegler? Again, like almost everybody, I thought you had good court presence, good eye contact. I thought the defense did a really good job of cross-examining you, and I'll get to that in a second. So, I thought the email took just a little bit under cross-examination, and I guess I'll go there next. Ms. Ishmael, is that correct?
Yes.
Wonderful cross. Cross-examination is one of those things, and I've done in my career both defense and prosecution. That's a fine line, and I think you played it really well. You came across as authoritative as opposed to bullying, which is easy to do. But you're defending a man who's, at risk of losing a lot in his life. And it seemed like you made no apologies for doing that and hard charging. But again, you didn't cross that line into what I would consider bullying, and I thought it was very effective. And Mr. Morris, I thought you should have rehabilitated your witness. So one thing that the cross-examination kept bringing out is, she claims to say this, she claims to say this, she claims to say this, if she'd been rehabilitated. Okay, these things actually happened, I'm not claiming this, I mean, she offered that once or twice, but it needs to be emphasized, I think. And so let's see. And again, everybody's excellent knowledge of the rules of evidence, objections. Katie Polson. I thought you helped the plaintiffs make their case. And I'll tell you why. I know that, and as in real life, witnesses sometimes can't be controlled, and rather than responding to the questions that were being asked of you, you kind of went off on a tangent, and you weren't really responsive to the questions. And one answer in particular, I thought really hurt your case and helped the plaintiff's case. And again, because it wasn't really responsive to any question that Ms. Harris asked you, but you volunteered. How does a candidate win when nobody votes? Now, I understand that the expert, that was kind of his opinion, but that fell right into the plaintiff's theory of the case. That Ms. Ziegler testified about that, hey, that was their strategy from the get-go, is to keep the voters in District 12 at home. That's, of course, the plaintiff's theory, that it's the mayor that benefits from election fraud. And again, that was just volunteered by you. So I know that when you're doing witnesses, you're trying to keep in character, and you can get into character, but I might, rather than volunteering information, try to stick to what's being asked. Ms. Ishmael, and your direct of the mayor, Mr. Cobb, I thought it was good. I thought it was, he's the star of the show, so to speak, and you used open-ended questions and direct examination properly. You allowed him to tell the narrative. This is his story to tell. And you allowed him to do that. Sometimes when people are doing direct examination, they ask a lot of closed-ended questions, and that is not what direct is about. Direct is about establishing a narrative. And you did that, so I thought that was really good. Demonstratives on the plaintiff's side, awesome. They're really helpful to fact finders. All throughout the trial, thought it was great and really helpful to me, so I'm glad you used them. Ms. Mosby, I thought you did really well in your cross-examination, and it was a little bit of a pitch battle there, and I thought you handled it appropriately and fought for your case. So I thought that was really good.
Need a Judge Nico, sorry, I go. Yes.
And Ms. Yumalakis, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Perfectly, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought you did a good job of using their expert to make your case. Again, I thought your court presence was really good, your command of the well, good eye contact, good voice volume, good responses to objections. You finally started to tie that strategy of keeping people home to the flag. And I thought that was critical. I thought your closing was good. I thought Ms. Ishmael's closing was really good. So overall, I think you both did wonderfully. So just my overall comments were demonstratives were great. Everyone had a great command of evidence rules. Plaintiffs needed to do more to connect the dots for this circumstantial case. And defense witnesses ultimately helped the plaintiff's case. Those were just my overall comments. But overall, you guys did great.
Thank you.
So now can I ask where you guys are from?
We're from Rhodes College
Northwood.
in Memphis.
Northwood University.
Northwood
University.
Where is that?
In Midland, Michigan.
Oh. How fortuitous. Thank you, you guys are great.
There you go. My name is Lorelei Bowman. I am with Fifth Third Bank. I'm working in compliance for about 8 months. Before that, I have practiced real estate, probate, foreclosure, bankruptcy. I have been very much involved in trial advocacy as part of my law school program, so I have contributed a lot. And my comments will not be more from her practical standpoint, but more from a trial competition, because that's what I know. One of the things that I want to ask you, who has those exhibits? Are those exhibits your guys' plaintiffs?
Yes.
Okay. Tip for the defendant, use their exhibits. Use them. Don't let them go. I mean, because when they were using those exhibits right there in front of me, amazing. These, don't ever take them away from the jury. It's amazing what an impact it does, because it frazzles them when you use their exhibits, you point to their exhibits, you use what they prepared. Opening and closing, I heard a theme from you guys, and it was in opening, it was in closing. I did not hear it from defense, unless I missed it. But that's something that throughout the case, it sticks with you. And for some reason, I thought at one point that the theme in opening TC fine. I'm sorry. I thought that somehow you started with the people voted or something like that. I wasn't sure, but anyhow, use a theme, it captures attention. Don't use the word lie. It's a strong word, and some people that are Christians or what have you might get offended by it. So you never know what your jury pool is. I mean, misrepresented, misled, whatever, it's okay. Lie is a strong word. Introduce yourself when you start. Defense made a good job in acknowledging you guys, acknowledging the judge, acknowledging us. That was missing, and they did that. And every time on the cross-examination, what I used to do is, because it's not my witness, I always introduce myself. My name is so-and-so. I would like to make some follow-up questions on the direct, so you know who they're talking to. The directs are all good. The cross, I love the cross-examinations. The witnesses for the defense on cross, personally, I think they tripped you guys a little bit. There's a point that when you realize you're not getting anywhere, try to step out, because it was both of them, the last two witnesses, the mayor and the doctor, I felt that they gave you the runaround. So the one thing that I loved about the mayor was, I was sitting here, it's like, well, you heard she said so-and-so, she testified. I was at a point of saying, okay, how about she says, no, I'm sorry, I was reading something, I didn't pay attention. What could you have done? That's how you trip other people. So, don't do it excessively, but I would have tripped somebody, Because let's say he was reading a book, at the end of the day, he has his attorneys that pay attention and do the trial. So if your cross is based on what you heard, one of these people might trip you up. Just a thought. Direct cross were good. She pointed to a lot of more detail than I did, but use their boards. And also, at the end, I was also called as a juror, and the one thing that I realized while being a juror is that if you show me the elements, if you write them out, and especially for the defense, saying these are the elements, and point on the element that the plaintiff did not meet. You don't have to point on all, just one, right? Because if all elements are needed, then it takes one to trip their case. And point on that makes it, and it would have, as a juror, for me, I would have like, oh yeah, and he would have educated the other jurors. You have to think about what is your, audience. A lot of people have no idea, what they're talking about, then you lose them. So, and the one thing that I realized when I was in competitions, you guys know it all. You know, you don't need any paper, you don't need nothing. For whoever moves on, if you happen to be in your final round, do you really need any of the paper on your desk? You don't need any of that. It just gives a good impression. I used to go in competitions with nothing, with a paper and pen, and that's all it is. Because you guys know it, and you really don't need all that. So, that's mine. But, you know, I was impressed by your closing, quite honestly. I thought that nailed it, even though I was still missing that theme. Y'all, you know, your opening was good. I mean, you guys did amazing. You're undergrad, right? Okay. Yeah, if I wouldn't have known any better, I would have thought that you guys are all in law school. So, good job.
Thank you.
And I would have thought the same, quite frankly. You guys all have a fantastic command of the rules of evidence, quite frankly, superior to a lot of the attorneys that actually practice in court. So you should be proud of yourself. That's a lot of hard work that you put into this. And I would also point out that you were not timid. You made your arguments, you stood by your arguments, you were respectful and appropriate throughout the court proceedings. And across the board, I think you all did an excellent job. And if you choose to become attorneys in the future, you definitely have bright futures ahead of yourself as trial attorneys, which is a very special skill. It's hard to get up in front of a group of people and tell a story. And I think you all did a nice job of bringing that together. With the plaintiff side, I really liked it. You had a theme from the beginning that you wrapped around and came back to conclude in the end, which I think was really strong. That was definitely good teamwork amongst you. You did a nice job of your direct and cross-examinations of the witnesses. The defense, I think you also did a very strong job. I love the way that you brought right off the bat in your opening statement, this is their burden. We don't have to show you anything. They have to meet these elements, and they have to meet them on each and every element. That was such a strong way to begin, and I heard that again in the conclusion, in the closing argument, where you made that same point about the fact that that this is the plaintiff's burden. As much as using the exhibits, and I agree with that, that's great if you can take somebody else's exhibits and use them on both sides. The other thing you have to be not afraid to do is put them away when it's not helping, when it's your turn. Take them down. Don't leave them sitting out there. As a defense, I wouldn't have let that large picture of the gentleman who's accused of committing voter fraud sit out there. You don't want to make that connection. You don't want to give that guy a face. You don't want to allow that picture of him in the orange suit, the jumpsuit, to be sitting up on a board and then have next to it a phone number that's in your client's phone book, old school phone book, but the phone log showing that connection. Don't be afraid to take those down and move that out of the way, and then use them when it benefits you, like you did at the end. You took the plaintiff's exhibit and you showed no arrow here. That was really fantastic. That was effective, showing they've gotten you 3/4 of the way, but they can't make that fourth corner attach. So that was really outstanding work, I think, that you all did. The witnesses, you were great. I thought each and every one of you did a really good job with what you had. On the other hand, I actually liked what you did by throwing in that extra information, because that's reality. That's what witnesses are going to do on the stand, and I think that it becomes the job of the attorney to control their witnesses and to get that information back around. So from giving them an opportunity to express their point, I think the way that you managed that, I appreciated it, because it's very real to life as to what I see with witnesses doing that. I didn't quite understand why the defense, and I'm sure it's something in your protocol that you had to call the doctor of statistics, because to me that didn't make any sense, because he's pretty much the witness who's helping them say, yeah, there's voter fraud here. And I don't know how, if at all, you can minimize that in your presentation. Yeah, and I think that you did a great job. You took a limited amount of time with him at the end. So I assume that that was part of what you were required to work with, and that's a tough thing to have to deal with. So I really like the way that you guys managed to keep that short, brief, and try to minimize that part of what you had to work with. So that was a really good job. I would suggest from a defense perspective, you needed to be on the attack of the one witness who, from the prosecutor or the plaintiff's side, was making that connection between your client and this gentleman who committed the fraud. You could have attacked her based upon her ethical requirements. She's an attorney, and now she's saying that there's fraud that's taken place, and she's aware of that. You know, she's got ethical obligations to report that. You really could have gone after her on that basis, and why, after the fact, after you've been fired, did this all come out? Because, you know, as attorneys, I'm sure you know we all have ethical obligations, and that would certainly be something that would be a huge red flag. And if you need to bury a witness from your side, she's the one that you have to bury, because without her, you have no connection between the person who committed the fraud and your client. So she's the person that you really have to strongly attack and go after her credibility as to why she'd be making the statements. Plaintiffs did an excellent job of bringing her up and propping her up as somebody who knows idealistic and the rest of it, minimizing the other things that were behind. But again, I would say don't be afraid to rehabilitate your witnesses if you feel like there's been some damage done. I know you've got time constraints and the rest of that. But overall, you should all be proud of yourself. And in my opinion, you're all champions for being here. And I really wish you good luck in the rest of the competition.